The rules from the left are very clear. Just because they get to do and say certain things doesn't mean you get to do or say the same things. And this holds true across the board for in many areas, but especially it's true for Hitler and Holocaust analogies. As you no doubt recall, Democrats and leftists across the spectrum at every level spent the past half decade comparing Donald Trump to Hitler and his every executive action or policy proposal to the Holocaust. They invoked the Nazis at every turn, reflexively accusing their political opponents of being Nazis. I've been called a Nazi myself more times than I can count, in spite of the fact that I've never participated in any genocide of any kind to my memory, nor have I ever expressed any allegiance to or affinity with the Nazi Party. There's no factual basis for calling me a Nazi or you or Trump, but it was never about facts. For them, when they say Nazi, they simply mean that your opinions are bad, in their opinion, and the Nazis are bad, and therefore, since you're both bad, you're the same. That's as far as the similarities have to go in order to justify the comparison in their minds. And it's not just with the Nazis. These are the same people who will accuse you of directly causing hundreds of trans people to commit suicide if you so much as state that women don't have penises. These are people who will throw suicide, tragedy, death, genocide, Holocaust around like they're water balloons. Whatever is required to land a hit on their ideological opponents. And yet, as established, none of this gives you license to do the same. They have different rules. They have a different lane that they run in. And you better stay in your own lane or there will be hell to pay. Marjorie Taylor Greene learned that yesterday when she sent out a tweet comparing vaccine passports to the gold star that Jews were forced to wear under the Nazis. Greene tweeted, quote, "Vaccinated employees get a vaccination logo, just like the Nazis forced Jewish people to wear a gold star. Vaccine passports and mask mandates create discrimination against unvaxxed people who trust their immune systems to a virus that is 99% survivable." Now, so that was the tweet. And that is, to my mind, a sort of silly comparison, overheated. I am very opposed to vaccine passports, but this isn't the comparison that I would draw. Yet Greene's point here, first of all, comparison aside, is correct. It is wrong to discriminate against unvaccinated people, and vaccine passports are a terrible idea with all kinds of potentially awful ramifications. Whatever you think of the Nazi tie-in, the analogy she draws here is utterly par for the course. People do it all the time, Democrats especially, but not just them. People everywhere across the internet are always invoking the Nazis and World War II and the Holocaust to make their point. Is that because they're anti-Semites? No. See, if they're anti-Semitic and they're Nazi sympathizers, then they would support the Holocaust and they wouldn't use it to illustrate how evil something is. The whole point of the comparison is that the Holocaust was bad. That's the point. The constant Nazi analogies are really just the result of not anti-Semitism, but a kind of intellectual laziness and a lack of imagination. Nothing more sinister than that most of the time. Certainly in this case, it's not sinister. It's not a big deal. It's not some great evil thing that Marjorie Taylor Greene has done. She's just done what everyone on the internet is doing every day, all the time. In summary, who cares? Well, the left cares. They care about this hyperbolic Nazi analogy. This one outraged them. The ones they make all day, every day, all the time, nonstop are okay. But this one was beyond the pale. Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet set off a day's worth, and now 2 days worth of over-the-top, hand-wringing outrage, condemnations, solemn conversations about the grave threat that Marjorie Taylor Greene poses to our democracy. Her tweet was condemned by every Democrat, every media outlet. Even the Auschwitz Museum felt the need to chime in. Cable news yesterday featured many breathless segments like this one with John Berman on CNN. Listen to this.
It is not only ahistoric, it is abhorrent. It's also apparently allowable under House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who hasn't commented on it and refused to punish Greene for past anti-Semitic statements she made. Wearing a mask compared to the murder of 6 million people? It's so far beyond the realm of decency, it could only possibly be made worse by comments from Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I stand by all of my statements. I said nothing wrong. And I think any rational Jewish person didn't like what happened in Nazi Germany, and any rational Jewish person doesn't like what's happening with overbearing mask mandates.
Any rational Jewish person? I'm Jewish. I'm not at all religious, and thank God my family made it to this country decades before the Holocaust, but that's my heritage. And I promise you that Congresswoman Taylor Greene, she thinks I'm Jewish. So as a rational Jewish person, let me just say to Marjorie Taylor Greene, don't you dare speak for me. Not if you're going to compare health measures or anything to the Holocaust. In a tweet last night, she said, I'm sorry if my words make people uncomfortable. No, they don't make me uncomfortable. They make me sick.
How dare you? Abhorrent. It makes me sick. I'm a Jew myself, says John Berman. Sure, he doesn't care about his faith, he says, and he's never said a single word of protest against any left-winger making a Holocaust analogy ever. But even so, he is outraged, offended. He's never heard of anything so terrible in his life. And where are the Republicans? Why aren't they condemning this? They must condemn at once. Condemn this thing that we're pretending to be upset about. Condemn it. Well, don't worry. Republicans are always ready to bark like dogs whenever the left snaps its fingers. And right on time, House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy issued a statement condemning Marjorie Taylor Greene in no uncertain terms. He said, in part, quote, Marjorie is wrong, and her intentional decision to compare the horrors of the Holocaust with wearing masks is appalling. The Holocaust is the greatest atrocity committed in history. The fact that this needs to be stated today is deeply troubling. Americans must stand together to defeat anti-Semitism and any attempt to diminish the history of the Holocaust. What a pathetic little worm this guy is. House Minority Whip Steve Scalise also condemned. So did Liz Cheney, of course, calling the comments vile and evil and lunacy. Evil. It's evil now. I mean, there are a lot of evil. Everyone on the internet is evil now. You included. Everyone. CBS has a report on other GOP leaders who joined in the condemnation parade. Quoting now, it says, a spokesperson for Nancy Pelosi responded that the speaker, quote, has for decades spoken out against anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic attacks, including just yesterday, citing a tweet from Pelosi denouncing anti-Semitism. Leader McCarthy waited days to even issue a statement in response to one of his members demeaning the Holocaust. And hold on a second. Demeaning the Holocaust? Well, yeah, we wouldn't want to demean and insult the Holocaust. What does that even mean? Demeaning the Holocaust is a horrific, horrible thing. You wouldn't want to demean it. Quote, and he clearly intends to continue to welcome Marjorie Taylor Greene in the GOP and shield her from any real consequences or accountability for her anti-Semitism. This is according to Pelosi spokesperson Drew Hamill. Leader McCarthy's silence has spoken volumes about his allegiance to the most extreme elements of the GOP conference. Greene's recent comments may have precipitated a response from McCarthy following criticism from prominent Republicans. Quote, please educate yourself so that you can realize how absolutely wrong and inappropriate it is to compare proof of vaccination with the 6 million Jews who were exterminated by the Nazis. You are an embarrassment to yourself and the GOP, according to Matt Brooks, the executive director of the Republican Jewish Coalition. He said in a tweet on Tuesday morning. Jeff Miller, a prominent GOP lobbyist and close friend of McCarthy, who sits on the Holocaust Memorial Museum Council, slammed Greene in a tweet on Tuesday, saying he would be happy to arrange for her to visit the U.S. Holocaust Museum. Quote, then maybe going forward, you wouldn't make any more disgusting, ignorant, and offensive tweets. If I'm wrong and you're not ignorant about the Holocaust, then you are disgusting. Now, I could go and check to see if any of these blathering phonies and idiots ever said anything like this to any Democrat who has invoked the Holocaust or Hitler, but I don't think I need to check because we all know the answer. They didn't. We also know that these Republicans, being good little puppies and doing as they're told, will never actually succeed in satisfying their masters. Even though Republicans condemned, as they were instructed to, and did it within hours of the offending tweet, still wasn't enough, wasn't fast enough, wasn't passionate enough, as Wolf Blitzer and Dana Bash, back on CNN, made clear.
Why do you think it took these Republican leaders so long to condemn these outrageous comments from this Congresswoman?
It's a difficult question to answer, and we haven't been able to answer, to ask any of the leaders themselves. why it took them so long.
For you and me, it's not just political. It's not just the story we're covering. This is a very personal issue, given the fact that both of us, we lost family during the Holocaust.
That's right. And none of this should be political. This isn't about political party. This is about right and wrong and ignorance and whitewashing something that was a stain on humanity and human history. And yeah, I mean, the fact that Auschwitz had to come out with this incredibly powerful tweet. My grandparents were Nazi refugees. My great-grandparents perished at Auschwitz. Yeah, you know, maybe a yellow star was something that was, yellow star was horrible. Being gassed, which is what my great-grandparents were, is a whole different thing. And to compare that to the notion of public health and wearing a mask is just beyond the pale. I can't imagine what it's like for you, Wolf. Your parents were in slave labor camps.
Yeah.
The really offensive thing is that these soulless sociopaths would use their own dead family members to score political points, because that's what they're doing here. Now, if you think I'm being harsh, then please, just show me the clip from 2 years ago when Wolf Blitzer and Dana Bash sat there and tearfully condemned AOC for accusing Trump of running literal concentration camps, which she did. It wasn't even a comparison. She wasn't saying, oh, it's like a guy. She was saying he actually has concentration camps. Blitzer, as a man whose family perished in real concentration camps, must surely have been offended by that, if he was offended by Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments, which were innocuous in comparison. But no such clip or segment exists, and we all know it. And that's why Republicans, though they will never stop playing this game, must stop playing this game. When the left demands that you condemn your own side for doing the things that they do, and saying the things that they say, the correct response is to laugh in their face or ignore them, if you like. Or, you know what, outright defend whatever they want you to condemn, purely out of spite. That's fine too. Because, you know, really any response is better than doing as you're told and giving them what they want. It is not principled. There's no principle here. You are cooperating with these disingenuous, dishonest frauds, taking part in the charade, allowing yourself to be used, emboldening them, supporting them implicitly or explicitly, and none of that approaches the realm of principle. Maybe you do it out of fear, maybe you do it out of stupidity, maybe you do it out of self-preservation, or maybe you do it because you haven't thought it through. Whatever the motivation, it is not the more virtuous path. If you're an elected Republican and you work with Marjorie Taylor Greene every day, and she says something you disagree with, you can go and speak to her directly, personally. I'm not saying you have to agree with and support everything that everyone on your side says and does. I'm saying that condemnation as a public display, as public ritual, has to stop. It's the same principle that holds true for public apologies. I'm against those too. I'm not saying that nobody should ever apologize ever again. I'm not against apologizing in principle. I'm saying that apologizing to the public in this ritualistic fashion because the mob told you to is never the right thing. It also will never have the result you're hoping for. You'll never receive forgiveness through a public apology, just as you'll never get any credit for a public condemnation. So stop and grow a backbone and smarten up, please, dear God. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.